The people of Texas are informed that, in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired laborer. The freedmen are advised to remain quietly at their present homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts, and they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere.
My name is Janoa Barrow, and I am the senior staff writer for the Sacramento Observer. I have worked for the Observer for 23 years, and over the years I have covered some of everything, but of course I've covered Juneteenth in the paper for a number of years, local events, historians, and the like. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, Oakland to be exact, the home of the Black Panthers. So sort of knowing, who we are and, standing up for ourselves was ingrained in me from a young age. And in the Bay Area, Juneteenth was something that was celebrated. Summer came, Juneteenth was sort of synonymous with summer, just like the 4th of July. But it's still been a number of years waiting for it to be recognized as it is now. Can you talk a little bit about, your knowledge of Juneteenth, your history with Juneteenth that led to you helping to author the legislation? So did you celebrate Juneteenth in your family, your household?
So I actually started celebrating Juneteenth when I was a little girl. One of my mom's very good friends in San Diego was actually from Texas. She and her husband were from Texas. And so every year they would have a big Juneteenth celebration with barbecue and all of the other food and drinks that you normally see at Juneteenth celebrations in Texas. And I remember as a kid thinking, what the heck is this Juneteenth? Why do we have to go over there every year? And, my mom would say, oh, that's when, the slaves in Texas finally found out that they were free. And so kind of grew up every year going over to their house for a Juneteenth celebration. And then in 2010, I actually moved to Texas. I lived in Dallas for 3 years. And so got a chance to experience all of the celebrations and the significance of Juneteenth actually living in Texas. And so, knowing since I'd lived there, but also since I'd grown up kind of celebrating it, my oldest son is actually born in Texas as well. Having that celebration every year, seeing how it started off with me just hearing about it as a kid, going to one person's house. Now it is a national celebration. Even in where I live in La Mesa, which is a smaller city in San Diego County. We're even having a big Juneteenth celebration this year that some of the residents have been planning for over a year. So seeing the progression and the knowledge that people are realizing this very significant part of American history, not just Black American history, but American history, is very, very heartwarming. And to have known that it became a federal holiday last year and starting to work on this bill to make sure that it's a state holiday is very significant for me and my family, and actually should be for all Americans.
Now, do you think that broader observance of Juneteenth will help address some of the racial issues that we've been seeing across the country?
I think broader celebration of Juneteenth will help everyone realize and recognize, and more importantly, remember American history. We are at a time where certain people in certain areas are trying to erase certain parts of our history or diminish certain parts of our history. And so what Juneteenth does is it reminds us of that, but also affirms the strength in Black Americans, but all Americans, to be able to overcome something as horrific as slavery. So I'm not sure if it will help with some of the racial tensions. I think we have a lot more to do, but it helps us not forget our past and our foundation and what we were able to overcome.
Can you tell us a little bit about the history of AB 1655 and where it stands and where you want it to go?
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting because AB 1655 was kind of like a brainchild of mine and also the co-authors at the same time. And myself and Assemblymember Reggie Jones-Sawyer were both independently working on this bill. I started thinking about it over the fall, speaking with one of my local city council members who actually wants to have this be a local holiday, local paid holiday in San Diego, but we can't do it before it becomes a state paid holiday. So started working on that, and then Assemblymember Reggie Jones-Sawyer was doing his thing, and then we realized that we were both working on Juneteenth bills together. And so that's when we decided to just kind of combine our efforts and both be co-authors. But it just goes to show the very significance and importance of making sure that, those that work for the federal government get their time off paid, but also here for those that work in the state, the states that, here in California, that we recognize the importance of all American history, including the final emancipation of the last slaves here in America.
Okay. And where does it stand?
So it has gotten unanimous bipartisan support out of all of the committees, and so it passed the Assembly floor with no one voting no on it, which is amazing. And so right now it's in the Senate, and so it will go through the committees in the Senate and then hit the Assembly floor and then go to the governor's desk, and we're going to make sure that we do all that we can to make sure that the governor signs it into law.
Is there a particular timeline that this is all expected to happen?
So hopefully the governor will sign it into law by August. It will have gone through that house and then reached his desk by August.
What does freedom mean in 2022?
That is a good question. What does freedom mean in 2022? Freedom means that you have the ability to do what you need to do and to use your voice as you want to. But it also means that you have the responsibility to make sure that freedom remains. And so I think a lot of times we sit around and we look at all of the things that we have in this country, because we are a democratic country, and we forget that there were people who fought and died and bled to get us to where we are today. And we also forget that there are some people, a very small fraction, that would like to take some of those freedoms away. And so it is our responsibility, not only for ourselves, but for our future generations, to continue to make sure that we are utilizing our freedom, that we are utilizing our voice, that we are utilizing our positions to make sure that we continue to have a democratic state, a democratic nation, one that values all people and all voices and really values freedom for all. And so when you have a lot, responsibility comes with that as well. And so we need to recognize that with our freedom comes the responsibility to make sure that people continue to have it in the future. So I think, one of the other things that we push here, that we're working on in the Assembly, is dealing with ethnic studies. It started with my predecessor, Dr. Shirley Weber, now Secretary of State, dealing with ethnic studies requirements in the colleges. And this last session, we passed ethnic studies requirement in high schools. In order to graduate from high school, you need to take an ethnic studies course. And hopefully we'll be able to trickle that down all the way into our elementary schools. And a part of that, a part of ethnic studies, a part of learning about different cultures, and specifically the Black culture, is learning about Juneteenth, so that it's not just a day off or a paid day off or a holiday, but they will actually get a chance to learn about the significance, why we're celebrating that day, just like why we celebrate July 4th, America's Independence Day, that they'll understand that Juneteenth is the Independence Day for those that were enslaved in this country for hundreds of years.